Well, good morning and happy Sabbath. It's not very often that you have so many children for a children's story. It's exciting. Well, I'm going to tell you a story today about work. Do you guys like to work? Well, at the beginning of this story, I didn't think I liked this kind of work. And so this had to do with doing something with my car. And it was time to change my oil. And so I had recently got this car, and so I went down, I was in Spokane, and I thought, well, I'm just going to go pay someone to change my oil. So I was driving, and I saw this sign that said, oil change, $24.99. I thought, well, I think that's a good deal. So I'm going to go there and get my oil changed. So I went in, and they had room for me, and they said, okay, we can change your oil. And I sat down, I was waiting. And before long, they came out and they said, oh, ma'am, we need to talk to you. You don't qualify for our $24.99 oil change. You're going to have to get the $69.99 oil change. And I was like, well, I don't know. They surely know something I don't know. And I'm like, really? Like, that's what you advertise? And my car's not a special car. It's just a normal car. Like, oh, no. We ran all the specs. Your engine is made of aluminum. And if you get the $24.99 oil change, you may as well pick up a handful of sand and dump it in your engine. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound very good. I was like, are you sure? Oh, yes. It'll be just like dumping handfuls of sand in your engine if you don't do the oil change that we're recommending. So I'm like, I don't think this is the right thing, but I don't want to dump handfuls of sand in my engine, so I'll just pay them to do it. I couldn't get a hold of my brother because I knew he would probably know how to advise me. And I paid them, or I agreed that I would take that oil change. And then I sat down, and they came back out, and they said, oh, ma'am, we just looked at your instrument cluster, and we saw the mileage on your car, and you're due for a radiator flush. And the radiator flush is going to be $129.99. And I'm like, well, maybe I don't know everything, but I do know how much a radiator costs at the auto parts store. And it's about what you're telling me. You're going to charge me to rinse mine out. So I said, no, I'm not going to pay you to do that. Like, oh, ma'am, but you're due. You need to do this. I'm like, well, they may have got me on the oil, but they're just not going to get me on this one. If I need to rinse my radiator, I'll make sure first from somebody else. So I paid them my, whatever it was, $60, $70 to get my oil changed. And I went home, and I had a talk with my brother, and he says, no, your engine's not aluminum. And no, you would not have been like dumping sand in your oil. That was just their way to upsell. Like, oh man, they took advantage of my lack of knowledge. So I decided from then on, I'm going to learn how to do this myself. Because I don't want anyone to do that again. And I figured what I paid them was about enough money to do it myself about 4 times. I'm like, I think I can do this. So I started collecting some tools. You know you have to have tools to do a job, right? So I got this. Somebody gave this to me, actually. And to change the oil, you need one of these. And you need some other tools here. And you need one of, I got one of these. That's what they said. You need this to change your oil. Have you ever seen one of these or used one of these? Well, everyone said it was so easy. You just put this around your oil filter, tighten it up, and crank it off. I'm like, well, I can do that. So I got my car up on its ramps, and I put this on, and I went to crank, and guess what? By the time I got it tight, it was like up against something, and so I couldn't actually make it work. I know people can make this work. I couldn't figure it out. It just didn't work for me. Well, someone showed me another tool that I don't have here today, but this other tool hooks onto one of these. It's like a metal thing, and it just works really well, and that one worked for me. But this time, it didn't work because I didn't have the right tool. But you know what? I had to use this adapter, and I put it on, and the first thing it did when I tried to empty my oil pan, the little bolt in there, it just broke. Just broke right off. So do you think my first time changing my oil worked very good? It didn't work very good at all, did it? I don't know if you could do anything more wrong than not be able to get the oil filter off and not be able to drain your pan. So I decided I need to figure out a little better how to do this job. Well, then I found this set. Now, this is Craftsman. It's a little higher quality than my first set. And I got a new one of these that works better that I could figure out. Now look at this one. This one is a better tool. And it actually had the part that just fit right on. I didn't have to use any cheap adapters, and it just worked. So from then on, I was like, oh, I can do this. But it taught me an important lesson about you have to have the right tools, right? If you get cheap tools or you don't know how to use your tools, it doesn't work very good. So ever since then, I've been interested in making sure I have the right tools and trying to do the things that I need to do. Well, the other day, I was out in my yard, and we have a box truck in our yard that we've used for moving and storage. It's like a 24-foot box truck. And we were getting ready to move it. So my brother was pumping up the tires. And I bent down near the tire, and look what I saw. This shiny little tool, little socket. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I need these. I use these. I could have a spare. And this one is a good brand. So I picked up and I put it in my pocket. And for the next hour, everyone I saw, hey, look what I just found. I just got this shiny little tool, and it's the right size, and it's really cool. I was so excited about this little thing that I found. Well, we went to start up the truck to move it. About an hour later, we got the tire pumped up, and it started up, and everything was going well until we put it in gear and went to drive, and guess what happened? It wouldn't go anywhere. We're like, what's wrong with our truck? It won't go. So we're looking around like nothing's wrong, nothing. Finally, we looked underneath the truck, and guess what we found? The drive shaft was gone. Now, the drive shaft on this truck is about 15 feet long. It's a big piece that goes from the engine all the way to the back tires, and it's rear-wheel drive truck, and so that's what makes the truck go. So the engine would run, but this bar that goes all the way to the back was totally gone. So you could put it in gear and rev it up and just wouldn't turn the wheel. Well, do you know what I realized this came from? A thief left a tool behind. And I was so excited about my little tool that I didn't even realize what I traded for this little tiny tool. Now, do you think that was a very good deal? It was a terrible deal. I was no longer happy about my new spare socket thing. It just wasn't very attractive anymore. Because now I had to find a very hard to find expensive part for a big truck. And do you know what I thought as I was thinking about this tool and looking at it and feeling very silly for being so excited that I didn't even notice like some huge part of the truck was gone? What I realized was that sometimes we have an enemy that's just like that enemy that took part of our truck. And he might leave us some shiny little thing that distracts us while he's taking something very important away from us. Now, you guys might not need to be on the watch for your drive shaft getting stolen. I hope you never have a drive shaft stolen. So maybe you're like, well, this doesn't apply to me. But can you think of something in your life where the enemy might tempt you with some little dazzly, sparkly tool while he takes something big from you? Can any of you think of any sort of a situation like that? Yes, what can you think of? Oh, do you have one? Yes. Yeah. He said, taking away a mama. She said, can you think of any others? Have you ever thought about like, ooh, that candy looks yummy. And then you get sick later and you're like, that wasn't really worth it, was it? No. A little bit of candy for sickness, just not good. Or maybe you take something that's not yours. Maybe you take the biggest of something. And maybe you got the big piece of dessert or you got the best. but you don't have the peace and joy in your heart anymore. You know, that thief took something from me, but I don't think he has a lot of peace and joy in his heart. He can't, because it doesn't work that way. So, that's the lesson for today, is make sure that if you find something that looks really good, make sure it really is good. And then you're not losing something even more important while you're excited about the little sparkly thing. All right, you can go back to your seats now.
Amen.